Indirect threats and hostile rhetoric between Pakistan and India have created a tense and dangerous situation, with the spectre of nuclear weapons adding to the gravity of the conflict. The roots of this animosity can be traced back to the partition of British India in 1947. British Prime Minister Clarence Attlee announced India's impending independence, acknowledging the country's diverse population and the challenges it posed. However, the hurried withdrawal of British rule and the subsequent partition left behind a complex and volatile situation. The Mountbatten Plan, announced in June 1947, outlined the division of British India into the Dominion of India and the Dominion of Pakistan. India would have a Hindu majority, while Pakistan would be predominantly Muslim. The plan also allowed the princely states, which were ruled by Indian leaders rather than the British, to choose which dominion they would join. The partition was expected to bring closure and a sense of stability, but it proved to be far more problematic than anticipated. The abruptness of the British departure and the inadequate preparation for the partition led to power struggles, mass migrations, and widespread violence. Families and communities were torn apart, exacerbating existing tensions and fueling ethnic and religious strife. India, already reeling from the impacts of the Great Depression and the Bengal famine, found itself grappling with a chaotic and deeply divided society. During the partition, an estimated 10 million people were displaced, and communal violence erupted across the region. Mass killings, reprisals, and kidnappings became tragically common occurrences. The death toll from these conflicts remains uncertain, but it is believed to be in the hundreds of thousands, possibly even reaching 2 million. The Amritsar train massacre, where 3,000 Muslim refugees were killed by Punjabi Hindus and Sikhs, stands as a stark example of the brutal violence that engulfed the region. Amidst this turmoil, the Kashmir region became a major point of contention between India and Pakistan. Both countries claimed ownership of the region, further escalating tensions. The assassination of Mahatma Gandhi in 1948 by a Hindu extremist named Nathuram Godse underscored the ideological divide within India. Gandhi's vision of a secular and inclusive India clashed with the beliefs of right-wing Hindu groups, strengthening the resolve for a secular government. The Indo-Pakistani War of 1947, triggered by an invasion of Kashmir by armed tribesmen from Pakistan, added to the hostilities between the two nations. With UN mediation, a ceasefire line known as the Line of Control was established in 1949, demarcating the Indian and Pakistani-administered regions of Kashmir. However, in 1965, the two countries engaged in another war when Pakistani soldiers crossed the Line of Control in an attempt to incite insurgency. Peace agreements were eventually reached, but the cycle of conflict persisted. The animosity and territorial disputes between India and Pakistan have remained a constant source of tension. The possession of nuclear weapons by both countries has further heightened concerns about the potential for a catastrophic escalation. The international community, including the United States, has played a role in shaping this volatile landscape, and their involvement in the region's affairs cannot be overlooked. As the world watches the ongoing hostilities between India and Pakistan, it is important to recognize the complex historical factors and grievances that underpin this conflict. Efforts towards peaceful dialogue, diplomacy, and conflict resolution are crucial in order to avoid the disastrous consequences that could arise from a further escalation of tensions. During this period, Pakistan was facing internal troubles. Divided into East and West Pakistan, the East had a predominantly Bengali population, while the West was dominated by Punjabis. The two sides often disagreed, with the East feeling underrepresented in politics and Bengalis experiencing oppression. These factors contributed to a bloody civil war, where the Pakistani armed forces and pro-Pakistani Islamist militias were responsible for the massacre of a significant number of people and heinous acts against women. Estimates vary, with Bangladesh claiming 3 million deaths and up to 30 million displaced, while Pakistan provides lower figures. However, it is evident that severe brutality occurred. India, aligning with the East, joined the conflict, known as the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971, resulting in the victory of the East and the formation of Bangladesh as an independent country. Although many details have been omitted here, it is clear that India and Pakistan have a history of deep-seated differences and ongoing conflicts. To say that India and Pakistan have had disagreements would be a vast understatement. Their conflicts have persisted, resembling the contentious relationship between God and the devil. However, before delving into current flare-ups of violence, it is important to address another significant matter. On July 16, 1945, the United States conducted the first-ever nuclear bomb test, codenamed Trinity, in New Mexico. President Harry Truman received a telegraph message stating, "Babies satisfactorily born," as he was not present at the site. The following day, the Potsdam Conference commenced in Germany, where Truman, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin discussed post-war peace. Truman's interpreter, Charles Bolin, witnessed a notable encounter between Truman and Stalin. Bolin later recounted that Truman casually approached Stalin and whispered that the United States possessed a new weapon of unusual destructive force. This revelation shattered Stalin's perception, as he had not anticipated such swift progress by the United States in developing nuclear capabilities. Consequently, the Soviet Union and other nations sought to catch up in the nuclear arms race, including India, which would soon become entangled in a years-long conflict with its enemy, Pakistan. Ironically, the renowned physicist Robert Oppenheimer, often referred to as the father of the atomic bomb, quoted an ancient Hindu text when witnessing the bomb's explosion, saying, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Subsequently, on August 29, 1949, the Soviet Union experienced its own destroyer of worlds moment with a nuclear test in Kazakhstan. The British followed suit in 1952, the French in 1960, and then China. The question remained, who would be the next nation? India, under its secretive Smiling Buddha project, answered that question on May 18, 1974, when it successfully conducted a nuclear test in the Pokhran region of Rajasthan. This development displeased the United States, as it deviated from the intended trajectory. The US had been supplying India with nuclear fuel for 30 years as per the 1968 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which distinguished nuclear haves from have-nots. However, India contested the treaty's validity, aspiring to join the ranks of the nuclear haves and disregarding the US's opinion on the matter. Consequently, the US ceased supplying uranium fuel to India, a significant decision with implications for the Indian economy. The Canadian government also followed suit, citing India's allocation of substantial funds toward nuclear weapons while grappling with widespread poverty. Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India at the time, resisted signing any nuclear treaty, concerned about the excessive influence exerted by the US over India, particularly through leveraging food aid. Moreover, Gandhi held a grudge against President Richard Nixon, who had supported Pakistan during the Bangladeshi Liberation War while she was leading India. The sentiments between Nixon and Gandhi were mutual. Declassified documents revealed Nixon's intense animosity towards Gandhi, referring to her as a bitch in conversations with Henry Kissinger. Nixon further disparaged Gandhi, calling her an old witch. These conversations occurred in 1971, when Nixon discussed with Secretary of State William Rogers his belief that India wanted Pakistan to disintegrate and expressed his preference for tilting US policy towards Pakistan, blaming India for the conflict. These events are crucial to understanding what unfolded next. When Pakistan learned of India's peaceful nuclear test, it interpreted the word peaceful quite differently. Pakistani President Zulfikar Ali Bhutto assembled officials and vehemently instructed them to develop a nuclear bomb swiftly. Despite its significant poverty and widespread hunger, Pakistan was determined to obtain its own atomic bomb, proclaiming the need for an Islamic bomb. Although Pakistan maintained a friendly relationship with the US, providing nuclear arms technology was not within the US's interests. However, Bhutto had his own tricks up his sleeve. Pakistan was part of the Atoms for Peace project, attracting top Western scientists to work within the country. The US conveniently turned a blind eye to Pakistan's activities with its scientists and nuclear fuel. Simultaneously, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, covertly assisted Pakistan because Pakistan was clandestinely supplying billions of dollars worth of US arms to Afghan guerrillas fighting against the Soviets. In the years to come, the US would find itself at odds not only with Pakistan but also with those same Afghan guerrillas, who later became affiliated with Al-Qaeda. The US armed, trained, and funded these groups. Geopolitics is indeed a topsy-turvy world. With substantial assistance from China, and to a lesser extent the US, Pakistan eventually managed to develop its atomic bomb. A former CIA agent admitted, "We have helped create the conditions that exist today for the big bomb," specifically referring to Pakistan. India was displeased and blamed the US partly for creating this immense threat to its national security. Years later, the New York Times would write, "It required more than 3 decades, a global network of theft and espionage, and uncounted millions for Pakistan, one of the world's poorest countries, to explode that bomb." But it could not have happened without smuggled Chinese technology and contradictory shifts in American policy. China played a crucial role, providing blueprints and fuel, while the US contributed substantial financial aid and indirectly supplied nuclear technology and materials. However, when the US no longer required Pakistan's assistance in supplying weapons to Afghanistan, the multi-billion-dollar military aid program was terminated. Nevertheless, by that point, the damage had been done. Pakistan felt vulnerable without US support and accelerated its nuclear weapons program. In May 1998, despite international condemnation and threats of sanctions, India conducted a series of nuclear weapon tests. The international community expressed concern, viewing these tests as a significant escalation of tensions. The nuclear rivalry between India and Pakistan continued, presenting a grave challenge to regional and global stability. In a notable turn of events, tensions between India and Pakistan escalated in the late 20th century due to their nuclear ambitions. Following India's nuclear tests in May 1998, the New York Times reported that President Clinton announced wide-ranging American sanctions against India, including a halt to most American aid and the denial of loans and assistance from international institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. While a majority of Indians expressed support for the tests, the global community was taken aback by the nuclear posturing. Pakistan, feeling compelled to respond to India's actions, conducted its own nuclear tests on May 28, 1998. The detonation of Pakistan's first atomic bomb, codenamed Shagai-1, occurred in the mountainous region of Balochistan. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif wasted no time in declaring Pakistan a nuclear power, triggering outrage in India and raising concerns worldwide. Pakistan further claimed that it had started fitting nuclear warheads onto missiles capable of striking targets in northern and central India. The tense situation led to a standoff characterized by aggressive rhetoric and threats between the two nations. President Clinton announced sanctions against Pakistan similar to those imposed on India. The international community feared that these actions could trigger a nuclear arms race, exacerbating poverty and other socio-economic challenges faced by both countries. While India signed a No First Use (NFU) policy agreement, its statements regarding this policy remained ambiguous. The defense minister's recent warning that future actions would depend on circumstances highlighted the uncertainty surrounding India's nuclear stance. On the other hand, Pakistan had not signed an NFU policy, and its position remained unclear. Both countries' nuclear policies appeared muddled, casting doubt on the effectiveness of such agreements. Although the India-Pakistan conflict has been characterized by sporadic clashes and tensions, the use of nuclear weapons has thus far been avoided. Even during instances of significant unrest, such as the 1999 airstrikes by India against Pakistan-backed forces or the 2001 attack on the Indian Parliament, nuclear weapons were not deployed. However, the persistent threat of violence and the presence of nuclear arsenals continue to cast a dark shadow over the region. In 2019, tensions reached a critical point following a terrorist attack in Indian-controlled Kashmir. The militant group Jaish-e-Mohammed claimed responsibility for killing over 40 Indian paramilitary personnel. In response, India conducted airstrikes on what it deemed a militant training camp, resulting in Pakistan shooting down Indian planes and capturing a pilot. The deployment of nuclear-powered submarines and the exchange of heated rhetoric between leaders heightened fears of a potential nuclear conflict. To compound matters, India implemented significant changes to Article 370, revoking the autonomy of Kashmir and subjecting it to the same rules as the rest of India. This decision elicited strong reactions from Pakistan, which considered the move illegal and threatened to explore all possible options. Diplomatic relations were curtailed, and trade was suspended, raising concerns about the future of peace in the region. Experts warn that a full-scale nuclear war between India and Pakistan would have catastrophic consequences, resulting in the loss of tens of millions of lives and long-term global devastation due to black carbon clouds blocking the sun. Given the interconnectedness of the world, the impact would extend far beyond the borders of the two countries involved. The urgency to find a peaceful resolution is evident, with scholars and analysts expressing hope that the Kashmir issue can be resolved for the sake of regional stability and global security. Both India and Pakistan allocate substantial portions of their budgets to military spending, diverting resources that could be utilized for social and economic development. While military procurement plays a role in ensuring national security, critics argue that excessive spending exacerbates poverty and hinders progress. India, in particular, faces the additional challenge of dealing with China's assertive presence along its borders. In recent years, India has emerged as one of the largest importers of arms globally, with Russia, France, and the United States serving as major suppliers. Pakistan, on the other hand, relies heavily on China and Russia for its military acquisitions. The significant military expenditures of both countries persist despite widespread poverty, further highlighting the opportunity cost associated with the conflict. The path to peace between India and Pakistan remains uncertain, with the constant conflict showing no signs of abating. The prevailing bitterness and the ever-present fear underscore the urgent need for diplomatic efforts and dialogue. While the prospect of a nuclear war seems unlikely due to the deterrent effect of mutually assured destruction, the consequences of even a limited nuclear exchange would be devastating. It is imperative for the international community to continue supporting efforts to diffuse tensions and facilitate a lasting resolution to the Kashmir dispute, ensuring the security and well-being of the people in the region and beyond.